happy 25th anniversary Shrek. So yes, I'm doing a commentary on the first Shrek film to celebrate the film's 25th anniversary, and I am appropriately dressed with my green sweater. I think I do wear it well, and oh, well, what have we here? Oh, hello there, Shrek. Yeah, I've had this Funko Pop for a while. It's definitely one of my favorites, right next to the Batman the Animated Series Funko Pop and the 10th Doctor and Freddy Krueger, you know what I mean? Or as the Scots say, kin. Anyway, Shrek is available to stream on these platforms. And of course, maybe you could play this intro as the Universal logo plays over the DreamWorks logo. But anyway, as it's played, well, anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy my Commentary Companions episode of Shrek. Rawr! Welcome to Commentary Companions. I'm your host, Tony Garcia, and today, on May 18th, I'm celebrating the 25th anniversary of Shrek, which is what I'm doing a commentary for. As you know, 25 years ago on this day, May 18th, Shrek was released in theaters after having a bit of a private screening on April 22nd, 2001. Man, it is so crazy that this film is now 25 years old. I mean, I was 4 when, going on 5 when this film was released. Of course, I never really saw this film in theaters, but I did catch the film in kindergarten when it was on video and DVD. And, I have such a soft spot for Shrek, because it was my introduction to comedians like Mike Myers, Cameron Diaz, and Eddie Murphy. I mean, this film was a massive game changer for DreamWorks Animation. I mean, back then, DreamWorks was basically trying to find their identity as an animation studio, and they were hoping that Prince of Egypt would be DreamWorks' game changer and, be the big competitor against Disney. But Shrek changed everything and really helped DreamWorks find their identity as an animation studio. And, of course, this film made All-Star popular despite being introduced in Mystery Men. Now, the song All-Star was only a placeholder for test screenings until a new song could be found. But test audiences loved it, and the producers kept it in. When the producers decided to keep All-Star, they decided to let the band perform the last song in the movie, I'm a Believer. And yeah, I mean, I remember hearing this All-Star everywhere. I mean, it's a guilty pleasure song. And, I sometimes forget that Shrek was based on a children's book first. I'll explain why. You see, Shrek is based on a 1990 children's book written and illustrated by William Steig, made as a parody of traditional fairy tales. I feel it's only fair that I give a shout-out to William Steig and celebrate his legacy while celebrating the legacy of Shrek. It's essential. I mean, if I don't acknowledge William Steig, it would be offensive to everything that contributed to Shrek. Now, before working on children's books, William Steig started out as a cartoonist for The New Yorker. At age 23 back in 1930, he made 1,600 drawings for them and 117 covers. He did this to support his family during the Great Depression. In the 1940s, William Steig would carve wood figurines and sculptures of fantastical animals. You can find these wood figurines and sculptures in museums. And William Steig was also notable for doing parody greeting cards, the ones that are like, you stink, Merry Christmas, or you suck, Happy Birthday. These were the parody of traditionally sentimental greeting cards. Now, William Steig's first official children's book, what he ever worked on, was Roland the Minstrel Pig, released in 1968 when William Steig was 61. During his lifetime, William Steig made more than 30 illustrated books for children, making Shrek at 83. The first of William Steig's books to be adapted was Dr. DeSoto in 1984. The short was nominated for an Oscar for Best Animated Short Film. And of course, this was my introduction to an ogre. Actually, I guess I could look up when the ogre incarnation was introduced. Oh, wow. He just did it with one tap. Of an ogre created. Now, the concept of an ogre is originated in European folklore and gained literary popularity in the late 17th century, though its roots trace back to medieval Roman and Etruscan traditions. The modern term ogre was largely popularized by the French author Charles Perrault in his 1696 Tales of Mother Goose. The earliest literary appearance of the word is found in Chrétien de Troyes' Perceval les Contes de Graal, where it refers to a land of ogres. The word entered the French language and became common in fairy tales, such as those written by Charles Perrault and Marie Catherine de Aulnoy. The term is likely derived from the Italian orco, a demon monster, or the learn Orcus, a Roman god of the underworld known for eating human souls. While the term is French, the concept is global, appearing as cannibalistic giants in mythologies, such as the Cyclops in Greek literature. And Jim Cummings completes the joke. 5 shillings for the possessed toy. Now, traditionally, ogres are depicted as incredibly strong but generally unintelligent brutes. Now, they never explicitly state how Donkey's able to talk, whether it's magic or something else. But you know what? Who cares? Bad ventriloquism. What does... Uh-oh. Tinkerbell. Peter Pan. That's your first concern? The fact that he could talk now? Superfly. Oh yeah, Eddie Murphy makes Donkey his own. Whoop. Yep, run. Now, the word Shrek. Now, Shrek's name is actually based on a German word. It's actually a Yiddish German word, which is Yiddish or German for fear or fright. I mean, I didn't know this, but it kind of makes sense. There's even an actor named Max Schreck, who best known for playing Count Orlok in Nosferatu. Yeah. And where's your army, bitch? Yeah, I mean, give the guard credit. He knows when he's fighting a losing battle. Now, I bet what I'm sure you might not know is that Shrek was actually executively produced by Steven Spielberg. And Spielberg is the executive producer who kind of helped make sure Shrek became an icon. So we owe a lot to Spielberg. Now, Steven Spielberg bought the rights to the Shrek book in 1991. He originally wanted Shrek to be a traditionally animated 2D animated adventure film with Bill Murray voicing Shrek and Steve Martin voicing Donkey. Now, look, I do like Bill Murray, and I do like Steve Martin, but I don't know if I could imagine Bill Murray as Shrek, and I can't imagine Steve Martin as Donkey. I mean, it just doesn't match. Now, anyway, when DreamWorks was founded in 1994, Shrek moved to DreamWorks. If DreamWorks Animation hadn't been founded, there's a high likelihood that Shrek probably would have been made by Steven Spielberg's animation company, Amblimation. And of course, I talked about Amblimation in my commentary companions to Prince of Egypt. And trust me, I'm going to be mentioning Prince of Egypt a lot. Just don't make a drinking game every time I say Shrek, Mike Myers, Chris Farley, Eddie Murphy, and Prince of Egypt, because I don't want you to get alcohol poisoning. Also, please don't take shots every time I say DreamWorks or DreamWorks Animation. Now, development for Shrek began in November of 1995 at DreamWorks, right as Prince of Egypt was starting production. Now, if things were different, Prince of Egypt would have been DreamWorks Animation's first official movie with a February 1997 release, making Shrek their third film, maybe. Because you gotta remember, they were also working on Ants. But Katzenberg rushed production for Ants to an October 1998 release. But, I think Shrek could have been... I'm sorry, I think Prince of Egypt could have made for a 1997 release with a 97 release. They could have had their cake and eat it too. Oh yeah, backtracking. Now, Shrek was DreamWorks SKG's second collaboration with Pacific Data Images after Ants and The Peacemaker, because you have to remember, the first official movie to ever be released by DreamWorks was The Peacemaker. Now, what's not to be confused with the DC Comics character Peacemaker. But I totally get if you'd be confused with that. Now, The Peacemaker is a 1997 Cold War-era action thriller starring George Clooney as a Special Forces colonel and Nicole Kidman as a nuclear specialist who team up to track down stolen nuclear warheads from the former Soviet Union, clashing as they race to prevent a terrorist from using them. Directed by Mimi Leder, the film follows their partnership as they uncover a plot involving a rogue Russian general and Chechen rebels, culminating in a tense finale to disarm the last bomb. It was a box office success, though it received mixed reviews and is often seen as a solid, if standard, 90s action film. I mean, it is overlooked by much better films, and I guess some people forget that it was the first DreamWorks film, but it was also the first time that PDI, aka Pacific Data Images, worked on visual effects for a DreamWorks film. At least, that's what I believe. You see, Pacific Data Images, PDI for short, was founded by Carl Rosendahl on August 13th, 1980. PDI was known for doing animated visual effects. They did the morphing sequence for Michael Jackson's Black or White music video, and they did visual effects for films such as Scrooged, Ghost, Terminator 2, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, Star Trek VI, Batman Returns, True Lies, the Joel Schumacher Batman sequels, and specifically Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and Titanic, among others. Didn't even realize there was wax in his ear. That would probably disgust me. But yeah, so PDI did a lot of visual effects before moving into animation. In fact, one of their crew members was Andrew Adamson, the film Shrek's director. He got his start working for PDI in 1991. In 1996, DreamWorks SKG purchased a 40% stake in PDI, and they formed a co-production agreement to create 3D computer-animated films, starting with Ants. On February 9th, 2000, DreamWorks bought PDI and merged it with their animation division, becoming PDI DreamWorks, a subsidiary of DreamWorks Animation. Whether this was after production to Shrek wrapped up, I'm not sure. But I do know this. Shrek began production the same time as Prince of Egypt. A lot of the crew members of Prince of Egypt worked on Shrek. And as I said in my Commentary Companions episode, my sister asked me to tell this story, so I had to. Originally, Shrek was, Jeffrey Katzenberg was adamant that Prince of Egypt would be DreamWorks' magnum opus, and if anyone screwed up on Prince of Egypt, Katzenberg would punish the animators by forcing them to work on Shrek, seeing it as the equivalent to an animation gulag. The animators, who have a sense of humor, pretty much jokingly called it as getting Shreked. And now, I have to mention it. But yeah, it is crazy. Could you imagine an alternate universe where Prince of Egypt was DreamWorks' first animated film instead of Ants? Now, Mike Myers was in New York City when the crew realized that the line, "What are you doing in my swamp?" had never been read. So Jeffrey Katzenberg flew to New York City and had Myers read the line in the back of a limo. I mean, papaya? Okay, so, yeah, I don't know if I could really imagine Chris Farley saying, "What are you doing in my swamp?" Now, let's see. Now, before Mike Myers was cast as Shrek, well, he wasn't the original voice. If you know the production of Shrek, then you know that Chris Farley was the original voice of Shrek. And, yeah, so Chris Farley would have been Shrek, and it would have been his first venture into voice acting, and it also would have been his first attempt at doing a serious role, because Chris Farley voiced Shrek as a much more soft-spoken and optimistic character, very very much different from his loud, boisterous roles in films like Tommy Boy. Now, Chris Farley was cast as Shrek, and comedian Janine Garofalo was the original voice of Princess Fiona, with Chris Farley as Shrek. And this version of Princess Fiona would have been much different from the Fiona we got in the film. When Janine Garofalo voiced Princess Fiona, she would have been a much more smug and cynical, and which would have been a perfect counter against Farley's soft-spoken Shrek. And of course, it's ironic because she would later voice Colette in Ratatouille. And well, I'll get back to Chris Farley as Shrek soon enough. But funnily enough, John Lithgow, who voices Lord Farquaad, was voiced Farquaad even when Chris Farley was Shrek. And as you may know, Jeffrey Katzenberg asked the animators to pretty much model Lord Farquaad off of former Disney CEO Michael Eisner. Because, Katzenberg had beef with Eisner, and they hated each other after the falling out in 1995, which resulted in Katzenberg's firing from the Walt Disney Company. Yeah, I'll say it, Jeffrey Katzenberg was technically fired. Also, the interrogation of the gingerbread man is kind of funny, darkly hilarious, and he just crumpled his leg. That is so cruel. But yeah, Lithgow was the original voice of Farquaad, and this wasn't the first time he had provided his voice for an adaptation for a William Steig story, as in the 1990s, John Lithgow also did voice work for an adaptation of Sylvester and the Magic Pebble, which got adapted into an animated short by former Tom and Jerry director Gene Deitch. I've taken a glimpse at it, and it's pretty good. Now, John Lithgow actually never met any of the actors when recording his lines. He recorded his lines separately, with a reader feeding him his lines. Lithgow later admitted that while he enjoyed playing Lord Farquaad, he was a little disappointed that he never actually worked directly with Mike Myers, Cameron Diaz, or Eddie Murphy. Who voices Magic Mirror? Yeah, wrong words to say. Now, of course, the Magic Mirror is voiced by Chris Miller, who is pretty much done work for DreamWorks up until 2018, and now he works for Paramount Animation. But also he voices Geppetto in Shrek, and he was also the voice of Kowalski in Madagascar. I mean, I kind of recognize the voice. Yeah, so Chris Miller was the original voice of Kowalski, not to be mistaken for Phil Lord collaborator Christopher Miller. And Chris Miller also worked on Prince of Egypt as well. I think both Chris Millers, I believe. That wasn't that funny. Oh, I understood that reference. Oh, yeah. I wonder what would have happened if he had chosen Snow White or Cinderella. That probably would have been that would make for an interesting what if. Could you imagine if Farquaad had succeeded in marrying Princess Fiona? I mean, the kingdom of Far Far Away probably would have been angry at Duloc. Same with Prince Charming. I mean, it sounds interesting. Yep. Yeah, I think imagine if the magic mirror also had a chance to explain the curse to Lord Farquaad. If you know what you know. Yeah, perfect king. Now, as I said, Chris Farley began recording his lines as Shrek around 1996 and continued through 1997, completing roughly 80 to 95% of Shrek's dialogue. Eddie Murphy also began recording his lines as Donkey in 1996. Sadly, Chris Farley was unable to finish his lines as Shrek when he passed away in December 18th, 1997. I mean, this caused a massive impact on the production to Shrek. I mean, the producer, everyone panicked. They were unsure of what to do and how to handle it. Also, fun fact, the panicking guy is voiced by the director, Andrew Adamson. Another director cameo. A lot funnier than... it's almost funny as when Simon Wells voiced the old man that got whipped in Prince of Egypt. Yeah, I know. Pretty morbid. But yeah, DreamWorks was in a panic. They were unsure what to do. They were like, "What do we do?" They wanted to get one of Chris Farley's brothers to finish the dialogue and do an impression of Chris. But to be fair, Chris's brother was so grief stricken after losing his brother that DreamWorks thought, maybe not. And they decided and in fact, Mike Myers was hesitant about succeeding the role of Shrek from Chris Farley, due to them being friends and believing it was disrespectful to do so. But after thinking it over and the producers all telling Myers, "Can't we just settle this over a pint?" he decided to take on the role. And oh my gosh, the Duloc Children's Choir sounds like kids from The Simpsons, but, it's so cheesy and funny, but it's so funny. Shoes, wipe your ass! Okay, yeah, I know. But that's such a hilarious tease. Whether or not the producers wanted Mike Myers to do an impression of Chris Farley for the lines, I'm not sure. But what I do know is that Mike Myers was brought on as Shrek in late 1997. And at first, he did it with his natural Canadian accent. But eventually, he decided to voice Shrek with a Scottish accent that was based off of his grandparents. Of course, it wasn't the first time that Mike Myers has done the had done the Scottish voice for Shrek, as he also did it for when playing. He also did it for So I Married an Axe Murderer. In So I Married an Axe Murderer, he plays the main character Charlie, and he also plays Charlie's father with a Scottish accent that is very much like Shrek. And he also did a prototype of the Shrek voice for the character Fat Bastard in Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. Of course, when Mike Myers was hired as Shrek, they decided, the producers decided to let go of Janine Garofalo and recast Fiona for a much more softer and kinder version of Princess Fiona. Oh! Have at him. So medieval. Yeah, Can't We Settle This Over a Pint was eventually used in the final cut of the film because of producers, which is pretty funny. Now, I'm going to make a bit of an assumption here, but if Chris Farley hadn't died, there's a very high likelihood Shrek would have been released in 1998 or early 1999. Probably after Prince of Egypt. I mean, if things were much... I'm trying to imagine an alternate universe with DreamWorks. Like, maybe Prince of Egypt would have been released in February 1997 as their debut film. Ants would have been their second official film. And if Shrek recognized a tag team, oh yeah. Anyway, like I was saying, all right, so Prince of Egypt is would be their first DreamWorks Animation's first film, and there's a high likelihood Shrek probably would have been released in 1998, probably in January as well, and then Ants would have been DreamWorks' third film. I mean, that's what probably would have happened if Katzenberg hadn't been so greedy and tried to stick it to Disney. But, it is what it is. And Road to Out, yeah. Ooh. Well, that's not nice. Now, the late Alan Rickman was the initial casting choice for the role of Lord Farquaad. However, Alan Rickman opted to portray the role of Severus Snape in Harry Potter instead. Perhaps it's for the better. Apparently, the line, "You're on your way to a smacked bottom," was improvised by Mike Myers after he got annoyed at one of the directors. He had also used this line a few years earlier while playing his Austin Powers character in the popular music video of Madonna's Beautiful Stranger. Now, computer animation production started on the project on October 31st, 1996, and took more than 4.5 years to complete. Golly, I was over a month old when production started. Now, prior to release, Shrek was viewed by DreamWorks' lawyers since there were concerns that Disney would sue over the movie's not-so-subtle satirical references to the company's films and theme parks. Now, there are 36 unique locations in Shrek, more than any other computer-animated film at the time. Now, Eddie Murphy says the Shrek series is among his best works, and his BAFTA nomination for his voiceover performance was the first of its kind. Oh, I love the panic when he says no, like, oh shit, that's not what I meant. Now, the film's art director, Douglas Rogers, visited a magnolia plantation in Charleston, South Carolina, to do research for the look of Shrek's swamp. He ended up getting chased by an alligator. Oh, wow. Now, the whole animation team from Ants were recruited to work on Shrek, as well as Prince of Egypt. The effects department actually took mud showers to study how to realistically portray mud in the film. In an interview, Eddie Murphy joked that the movie Shrek and his character Donkey became so popular that if he had died the year the movie was released, newspapers would have probably used a picture of Donkey instead of him. Also, this film was also my first introduction to the song "I'm on My Way" from that one Scottish band that sang 500 Miles. Yeah, the Proclaimers. It took me a long time to realize, oh yeah, the Proclaimers were a Scottish band that sang 500 Miles. It took me a while to recognize their voice, but, I really did like it. It's a nice song. Of course, Jeffrey Katzenberg said that Shrek not only saved DreamWorks, financially speaking, but it also gave DreamWorks Animation an image that allowed them to make films like Madagascar, Kung Fu Panda, and How to Train Your Dragon. Now, Robin Williams was going to have a role in the film, in Shrek, but he refused to work with producer Jeffrey Katzenberg again. The reason was that years prior, during the production of Aladdin, Williams had a bitter falling out with Katzenberg, who was the chairman of Disney when that film was made. What role Robin Williams would have played, I'm not sure. But it is a shame. But ironically, Robin Williams would collaborate with Steven Spielberg again in AI, which was co-released by DreamWorks. Huh. You know, it kind of makes sense that the more I think about it, yeah, the Welcome to Duloc song is indeed a parody of It's a Small World. Apparently, Shrek showering in mud and bathing in water were two of the hardest things to animate in the movie. Any scene involving fire also proved difficult. But, for the most part, the film, the animation to Shrek still holds up 25 years later. Sorry, I got a weird DoorDash notification. Now, co-director Andrew Adamson frequently found himself at loggerheads with Jeffrey Katzenberg over the film's adult jokes. Katzenberg thought that some of the more adult material was inappropriate for an animated film. Adamson disagreed. Adamson could be perceived as winning the argument, as many critics liked the film for the fact that it didn't just pander to underage audiences. That's a good way to outwit someone. Now, Cody Cameron, who was the storyboard artist for the film, provided the voices for Pinocchio and the Three Little Pigs. In fact, several of the artists voiced the smaller characters for which they drew the scenes. Now, Eddie Murphy and Jeffrey Katzenberg have known each other since the beginning of their film careers. They promised that one day they would do an animated film together, which culminated with Shrek. Katzenberg even recommended Murphy for the part of Donkey, and no one else. And Katzenberg thinks it's Murphy's best work. I have to agree. It kind of makes sense that Katzenberg would have known Eddie Murphy, given his time working for Paramount back then. I think so, yeah. Now, an armor expert was brought in to show the animators a variety of armors that they could use as inspiration in the film. The animators tried on the armor, studied how they moved with the armor on, and also took turns flailing different swords. To this day, Janine Garofalo still has no idea why she was let go of Princess Fiona, but, I guess I'll get into why I think Cameron Diaz is better as Fiona later. Now, when Donkey goes off alone in the castle in search of stairs, he mutters, "I am the stair master." This same line was spoken by Eddie Murphy in the Nutty Professor remake after transforming into his character's alter ego, Buddy Love. Apparently, Gingy would later become a mascot for Walmart. Why do I not remember that? Of course, over 1,000 fantasy characters invade Shrek's swamp at the beginning of the movie. That sounds very uncomfortable. Oh boy. Now he's cornered. What did that part of the bridge was destroyed? What did he think was? How did he think he was going to accomplish that? What's this? Asks the dragon. A girl dragon. Now, Donkey was the easiest character to sketch since no one knew what a talking donkey would look like. He looked very different in the early drafts, more akin to Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, I mean, the two are very different, but in a good way, you know? It'd be kind of funny to see Eddie Murphy and Peter Cullen do lines as Donkey and Eeyore together to see what kind of dynamic they have. Now, the intent with Princess Fiona was to create the most photorealistic CGI depiction of a human. Prior to this, people animated through CGI had a certain stiffness and the facial features remained a little blank. To this end, the animation team brought in a leading Hollywood beautician to tell them how she applied makeup to A-lister stars. Well, that's one way to wake a princess up. Now, a fairy godmother was originally included in the movie, but it was cut out in the beginning of the movie's production. She eventually appeared in Shrek 2 and would form a lasting impact across the film series. Of course, the first Shrek film is the only film that doesn't feature a fairy godmother at all. Now, Nicolas Cage was initially offered the role of Shrek, but he turned it down because he did not want to look like an ugly ogre. In 2013, Cage admitted that he regrets the decision and explained, I'll do this in my best Nick Cage impression, "When you're drawn, in a way, it says more about how children are going to see you than anything else, and I so care about that." Nicolas Cage would later appear in the Croods movies, which are also made by DreamWorks. I don't think I could ever imagine Nick Cage as Shrek. It just doesn't work for me. And I really do like I do like Cameron Diaz as Fiona. She's much better as Princess Fiona. I mean, she knows how to play a parody of a traditional princess, and she really does have good chemistry with Mike Myers as Shrek. Oh, I love that burnt silhouette. That's funny. Oh, the cookbook with the How to Cook Nights. That's just funny. Yeah, so after Chris Farley's passing, talks went around the studio about hiring an impersonator to finish the lines. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they didn't go that route. Oh boy, that's a lot of gold. Smaug much? Now, John Lithgow was asked whether or not the adult jokes in the movie would have been too inappropriate for kids. He responds, "No, as long as it's done correctly. One of the things I always loved about British theatre was the annual Christmas British pantomimes, which are these corny old fairy tales that are put on as musicals. The principal boy is played by a girl, and the ugly sisters are played by guys in drag. Peter Pan the musical is very much in that tradition. It is a particular tradition developed over centuries. This ability to put on a show for the entire family where the adults and the children are laughing at the same time at the same jokes for completely different reasons. And the adults like it particularly because they realize that the kids are oblivious to what's so funny about it. It's a huge electric moment when these jokes pay off, and that's what Shrek is all about. It's very rare. In a way, that's what we were always trying to achieve on Third Rock from the Sun, appealing to lots of different audience constituencies at the same amount." Oh, right in the testicles. That's gotta hurt. I feel you. I feel you, man. Now, this is what Mike Myers had to say on his decision regarding giving Shrek a Scottish accent. Once I saw the whole picture, I saw I needed to dig even deeper, and in having Shrek be Scottish, I was able to tap into a certain energy. When his mother, who was from Liverpool, read him books like Babar or Curious George, she often gave British dialects to the characters. It was a happy memory of my childhood, and in Scottish, I was able to connect to that. When Mike Myers begged to be allowed to redo Shrek's voice, Jeffrey Katzenberg and Steven Spielberg agreed after hearing a demo, although the decision required the ogre to be reanimated from scratch. That instant cost us about $5 million, said Katzenberg, but it's Mike's total creation, and honestly, it made the movie so much better. And I agree, the Scottish accent for Shrek really does give him much more of a personality. Also, Shrek became the first American animated film screened at the Cannes Film Festival since the 1953 Peter Pan film from Disney. Now, Ramon Huey, supervising animator of Shrek, stated that Fiona wasn't based on any real person. He did many different sketches for Princess Fiona and had done over 100 sculptures of Fiona before the directors picked the final design. Yes, so Chris Farley's version of Shrek would have been about Shrek not wanting to scare people, but instead wanting to be a knight. And of course, and Fiona would have been much more brash and sarcastic when voiced by Janine Garofalo. During a voiceover session, Cody Cameron suggested that Cameron Diaz marry him so you can become Cameron Cameron. In the original script, Dragon was going to have hair on her head and be more overweight, so Donkey's flirting with her would have been more effective, but test audiences didn't like the idea, so the idea was removed from the final draft. Gaming hosts Jim Lange and Jimmy Fallon recorded the voice of the Magic Mirror, Lange, in particular, having hosted the dating game, which the Mirror parodies. Eventually, however, the Mirror was voiced by storyboard artist Chris Miller. And he's not wrong, and at least he's honest about it. Now, an additional scene was storyboarded but never filmed that revealed Lord Farquaad's plan for Duloc. He wanted to turn the entire kingdom into something like a gigantic shopping complex. Another scene planned and scrapped was Fiona getting Shrek and Donkey lost on the way back to Duloc. In fact, I remember seeing the deleted scenes where there's a minecart sequence. Hey, she asked him to do it, and he complied. I mean, seriously, don't place your eye in a keyhole and then complain when you get stabbed in the eye. It was just pretty funny that she was expecting Prince Charming. I'll say. In the original pitch, Shrek was to be a knight and rescue Donkey from a wicked witch. Shrek also varied from Scottish to Canadian and back to Scottish again. Also, ouch. Donkey annoying Shrek with his singing was one of the first scenes to be animated. The scene at Fiona's fortress was the second. The film's story originally followed the adventures of a teenage ogre who just didn't want to lurk around the swamp and frighten people. Shrek, who was basically a sweet, well-intentioned soul, wanted to do good. His ultimate dream was to become a knight and rescue fair damsels in distress. In this version of the film, Princess Fiona was voiced by a rather gruff, sarcastic female comic comedian Janine Garofalo. The princess was the one who didn't trust people, and it was Shrek's sweetness, kind heart, and good nature that eventually caused Fiona to open her eyes and learn that it was wrong to judge a person just based on how they look. According to Jim Hill Media, were you to ask the folks at DreamWorks, they'd probably still tell you that the Chris Farley version of Shrek would have been infinitely better than the Mike Myers and Cameron Diaz version that the studio eventually released in May of 2001. But the tragic passing of Chris Farley caused a ripple effect because he was no longer available to record the rest of his dialogue for Shrek's title character. DreamWorks had no choice but to chuck everything that they'd done up until that point and start the movie from scratch. This meant recasting the role, but Mike Myers seemed incapable of playing. It seems Mike Myers was incapable of playing a sweet, sincere character, which meant that the Yoker's part in the picture was going to have to be radically rewritten to play to Myers' strengths, which is how the gruff, emotionally remote version of the film's title character came into being. Of course, given that the title character of Shrek was now going to be sarcastic and nasty, that meant that the role of Princess Fiona would have to be rewritten as well, which is why Garofalo was suddenly found herself out on the street while Cameron Diaz was brought in to play the kinder, gentler version of Fiona. It's like, I love that. I love when Shrek and Donkey are surprised at Fiona for losing her temper. It's like, dang. Gotta give Donkey credit for trying to accommodate the princess. Shrek was almost made in stop-motion animation, but early tests proved too costly, and executives weren't pleased with the overall look and lack of facial expressions in the main character. After live-action miniatures and motion capture graphics also proved unsatisfactory, the studio went with computer-generated animation. Now, in 2015, a part of Chris Farley's recordings with Eddie Murphy were leaked to the internet, showing the scene where Shrek and Donkey are just hanging out outside looking at the constellations. It was a bit different. Yeah, Chris Farley's Shrek was a bit more smartass, but he also had this innocence to him, a lovable innocence about him, while most of Eddie Murphy's dialogue remained the same. Donkey's appearance was based on Pericles, a miniature donkey who lives in Barron Park, Palo Alto in California, right in the neighborhood of the Pacific Data Images / DreamWorks animators. You think? I think they kept that onion thing said from the original recording. And then Shrek's like, leave my parents out of this. This is what I like about this scene. I mean, now when Chris Farley says they judge me before they even know me, he sounds so bewildered and confused. Meanwhile, when Mike Myers says they judge me before they even know me, he sounds sad and resigned, as if he's accepted this fate and is resigned to it. And I mean, that makes him such a more tragic and sympathetic character. And as someone who's on the autism spectrum and is biracial Hispanic, I can kind of relate to that. I know what it's like to feel different and an outsider and to be judged based on my skin color. And yeah, that I take solace in a character like Shrek because he knows what it's like to be different. And also, I think it's very sweet when Donkey says, I didn't think you were a stupid, ugly ogre. I mean, that's very sweet and definitely helps give the film a heart and contributes to the film being so great. Of course, I have to endure seeing this uncomfortable scene. Yeah, because, okay, maybe I'm one to talk. Poor Mama Bear. I think not only is Lord Farquaad totally short, I think so is his wiener. Yep, how much? It's so disgusting seeing him get a boner. Like, oh my god, man. It's like, that is ballsy. Definitely earns the film a PG rating. Now, I mentioned this in my commentary companions episode to Prince of Egypt, and Fiona's singing voice is provided by Sally Dworsky, who also provided the singing voice for Nala in The Lion King, and she also was the second singing voice for Miriam in Prince of Egypt. And yeah, it is crazy. I was totally shocked to learn this, and yeah, Sally Dworsky has quite the vocals. That's good opera. Oh yeah, that bird can't compete. Ooh. And there's smoke coming out of the top of his talons. But hey, free breakfast. I still think that's funny. Now, one of the most difficult parts of creating the film was making Donkey's fur flow smoothly so that it didn't look like a Chia pet's fur. This fell into the hands of the surfacing animators, who used flow controls within a complex shader to provide the fur with many attributes: an ability to change directions, lie flat, swirl, etc. It was then the job of the visual effects group led by Ken Bielenberg to make the fur react to environment conditions. Once the technology was mastered, it was able to be applied to many aspects of the Shrek movie, including grass, moss, beards, eyebrows, and even threads on Shrek's tunic. Making human hair realistic was different from Donkey's fur, requiring a separate rendering system and a lot of attention from the lighting and visual effects team. And I say that. Also, Fiona burping was a happy accident because Cameron Diaz was sipping on Coca-Cola while recording, and then suddenly she belched, and it's like, whoops, and it's like, well, that'll make for a funny recording. Now, Cameron Diaz has said that Princess Fiona's romantic, practical nature was more like her sister rather than herself. And yes, this version of Robin Hood is technically French. He's a different incarnation of Robin Hood, known as Monsieur Hood. I don't think he's the real Robin Hood, you know? Shrek compares ogres to onions, saying they both have layers. This refers to the Henrik Ibsen play Peer Gynt, where the title character declares himself an onion for similar reasons. And they were just waiting there patiently. I guess they'd done a lot of choreography practice. Monsieur Hood McDown. Earlier in his film career, J.J. Abrams worked on this film, credited as Jeffrey Abrams, as part of the Propellerheads, a computer animation group which was under contract by Jeffrey Katzenberg to develop animation for the film. Now, 1,250 props and environments were created in the computer for the first film. Oh yeah, he's offended. It's like, yeah, yuck around, find out. And of course, I know this totally spoofs The Matrix, and I think it's funny. In fact, I think Shrek is better than The Matrix. Fight me. And he thought he could just defend himself with the whatchamacallit, what's it called? I thought you could use the accordion as a shield. Now, early concept sketches of Shrek in the 1990s saw him living in a garbage dump near a human village called Wart Creek. Another version saw him living with his parents and keeping rotting fish in his bedrooms. He's so nonchalant about it.
Now, Fiona originally was planned to be so real she looked human, but next to an ogre and a chatty donkey, a too human-looking princess in peril seemed out of place. In an interview with Jeffrey Katzenberg, he said, "When we had placed Fiona in the movie, which is a fairy tale world, it looked completely wrong. It stood out. It didn't fit. It looked bad. It looked like we made a mistake." Andrew Adamson added, "With a talking donkey, you've got leeway because no one's ever seen one. Fiona had to be a little bit stylized so she fit into this somewhat surreal, illustrative world." Yeah, tender. Yep. Bloop. And he's next to them. So, yeah, I think Donkey being colorblind explains why he was so nonchalant about Donkey. Because when you're colorblind, colors like green pretty much appear differently. They look almost like a bland Caucasian. And so, yeah. So Donkey assumed that Shrek was just a regular guy with weird-looking ears. Also, this is the perfect distraction. He's so trying to assure Donkey nothing happened, and wham! Now, Radio Disney was told not to allow any ads for Shrek to air on the station, stating, "Due to recent initiatives with the Walt Disney Company, we are being asked not to align ourselves promotionally with this new release of Shrek. Stations may accept spot dollars only in individual markets." The restriction was later relaxed to allow ads for the film's soundtrack album onto the network. Now, director Andrew Adamson chose to replace the earlier tournament scene with the WWF spoof because to add the wrestling sequence to the already scripted competition would have made the scene too long. "If you're doing comedy and parody, you want to stick to the one idea to keep it clean," Adamson said. "We felt like that sequence worked best as mainly a WWF parody. Before, it was basically just a whole lot of gags around traditional tournament ideas. Guys coming out and jousting and Shrek grabbing into the jousting pole and flipping them over. He would have still done the thing where he knocked the spigot out of the ale keg and turned the whole field to mud, and we had him water skiing or mud skiing behind one of the horses holding onto the horse's tail. It's an aesthetic choice you make as you're going." According to the director, Shrek's height varies between 7 and 8 feet depending on who you ask. He was 7 feet, and since then he's grown in people's minds, and now he's usually referred to as 8 feet. Originally, Shrek was intended to have magenta skin, having been based on the ogres of Icelandic mythology, but this proved harder to render in CGI, so the color was switched to green. I think that's a very wise decision. I mean, it really does add to the character's iconic appearance. Ooh. Also, this movie was my first introduction to the song "See the Pyramids Among the Niles," which dates back to the 1930s. Now, producer John H. Williams got the idea to adapt Shrek from his then preschool-aged sons. To me, it smacked of being a Nickelodeon-type project. At the time, they were very successful because kids want stuff that is iconoclastic. I've never had it before or since, but Shrek was effectively given a green light on the spot by Katzenberg, who said that he was going to make it. I had other options. Miramax had been interested in it also and had wanted to use Henry Selick, who directed Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach. Henry entered an exclusive deal with Miramax, and I knew that he was an impressive, talented guy, but DreamWorks on the spot said, we will make this movie. You know what? The process began immediately. We started doing character creation simultaneously with the earliest work on the outline with the writers. To me, it was the coolest process too, because there were so many voices that weighed in and made a huge impact in the evolution of it, which included storyboard artists and animators. It was much more of a collaborative enterprise than a live-action film in a way. The credited writers all made an important, significant contribution, but the storyboard artists also made a huge and unrecognized story contribution. Also, Shrek is the only film to not take place in Far, Far Away. Anyway, the film Shrek marks Mike Myers' sixth performance with a Scottish accent, following Saturday Night Live, Wayne's World 2, So I Married an Axe Murderer, and of course, Fat Bastard in the last Austin Powers movies. Well, last two. If Shrek's parents appeared in the original Chris Farley version of the film, Tom Bosley and Marion Ross would have voiced Shrek's parents. Smell the pheromones. Now, Shrek has 31 sequences, with 1,288 shots in every sequence total. Now, the producer, John H. Williams, no relation to composer John Williams, first encountered the Shrek book when he found his children reading it. After Shrek and Donkey defeat the knights at the tournament, Shrek turns to the crowd and says, "Try the veal." This line is part of the line spoken by Sollozzo to Captain McCluskey when they meet with Michael Corleone in The Godfather. Both lines come before a major character undergoes a life-changing moment. And of course, imagine my shock when I saw Fiona turned into an ogre. I mean, it is quite a good twist. And it's also faithful to the William Steig book, since, in the William Steig book, Shrek falls in love with an ugly princess. Anyway, during early development, Shrek would have stumbled on a witch to help him guide him through his journey. She would have had Donkey as a slave that Shrek would have possibly rescued, or she would let him follow Shrek. In later drafts, instead, there was supposed to be a scene later on where Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey go through an enchanted forest and end up at a witch's gingerbread house to meet the witch from the Hansel and Gretel story named Dama Fortuna. Her whole front lawn was completely booby-trapped with lasers and sticks that came out of the ground. Shrek had to die through all these things. Cute little bunnies would jump up and shoot blow darts at him as he tried to do a military jump and tumble to get into the house and save Fiona and Donkey. He ends up getting trapped himself, and the three of them are hanging near a cauldron while this witch is making a brew, and the three of them sort of work together to turn her spell back on her. It was cut due to being too long of a sequence. This character went as far as being designed through maquettes, concept arts, and was supposed to be voiced by Linda Hunt, who would have been added with the main four stars in the marketing. Now, DreamWorks considered re-releasing the film to a limited number of theaters on November 2nd, 2001 against Pixar's Monsters, Inc., but eventually decided against it. Instead, they released it on VHS and DVD that day. After working on Shrek for 5 years, the late Kelly Asbury, who was the uncredited co-director, left the production to go work on Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. Eventually, he would work on Shrek 2 as the main director with Andrew Adamson. Now, Goldilocks and Sleeping Beauty were also planned to have been used in the first Shrek film. Of course, Sleeping Beauty would later on appear in Shrek the Third, and Goldilocks would be featured in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, voiced by Florence Pugh. Now, Princess Fiona proves that she could have rescued herself if she were ever inclined to, by correcting Shrek when he starts heading the wrong way, stating, "Where are you going? The exit's that way." Now, the filmmakers also cut a lot of cameos from famous fairy tale characters from the early storyboard scripts. In the beginning of the movie, when Shrek scares off a gang of ogre hunters, he was originally supposed to encounter Mary searching for her lost lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Vicky Jensen said Mary got cut to simplify the introduction of the fairy tale subplot and establish Shrek as a loner nobody wanted to meet. Also, Shrek is the only film where the only Shrek film where the main cast members' names are shown at the beginning instead of the end. Now, the film reached the $100 million mark after 11 days, equaling the time it took Toy Story 2 and The Lion King to tie for the fastest animated film to reach the $100 million mark. But it passed the $150 million mark on its 18th day of release, making it the fastest animated film ever to reach that mark. It became the second highest animated hit of all time, behind Disney's The Lion King. Now, this is the only Shrek movie that hadn't been in production for only 3 years, but rather 4 to 5 years, having gone through multiple production obstacles. Also, this is the second DreamWorks Animation computer animated film, as well as the second one to be rated PG after Ants. And don't feel too bad about Dama Fortuna, because she would eventually evolve into the fairy godmother seen in Shrek 2, voiced by Jennifer Saunders. Oh, so I guess the old woman at the beginning of Shrek, at the beginning of the film, who tries to sell donkey, was also played the nun in the Blues Brothers. I feel like an idiot for not recognizing her. Now, by 1997, the project was then completely retooled. Director Ron Tipp was replaced by the late Kelly Asbury, who would soon move on to Spirits, Dine of the Cimarron, and Andrew Adamson. John Garbett stepped down as producer, and writer Aaron Warner was hired. The first act of the movie was rewritten, and an all-star cast convinced to join the project. The troubled movie then seemed to quickly rise from its own ashes. Once Mike Myers came on board, Andrew Adamson admitted, "We went back to the drawing board to tailor it to Mike's talents. Suddenly, with Mike in the lead, the ogre character came to have a Scottish accent. The outtakes are hysterical. It's really too bad this could only be a 90-minute movie." I mean, Owen Wilson was considered for the voice of Shrek. Wow. I don't know if I could really imagine Owen Wilson as Shrek. But Owen Wilson is a good Lightning McQueen. Now, Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob, was going to voice a mugger in the original Chris Farley version. His character was going to insult Shrek's mother, in which Shrek then pulls on the rope that the mugger was hanging from and sends him soaring into the night sky. Though Shrek bears a striking whole body resemblance to the late wrestler Maurice Tillet, the French Angel, DreamWorks has neither confirmed or denied the rumor that Shrek was modeled on Tillet. I think it's just a happy coincidence. Okay, technically, Shrek is the third computer animated film to be rated PG by the MPAA after Ants and a 2000 dinosaur movie by Disney. Now, the job of composing the score to Shrek was offered to David Newman, but he turned it down because of his work on Ice Age. And this film is the third and so far last DreamWorks animated film, and the only film of the Shrek series to have Harry Gregson Williams team up with John Powell to compose the score, after Ants and Chicken Run. Powell was left out to compose scores for later Shrek films with John H. Williams due to a conflict. Now, the pre-production, as I mentioned, the pre-production on Shrek started in 1995. DreamWorks first hired a motion capture company to develop it, wasting a year and a lot of money. Then, a small crack team took a couple of months to develop a 15-minute 3D demo using the voices of actors Chris Farley and Janine Garofalo. Very disappointed by the results he saw in the summer of 1997, Katzenberg felt the project did not justify the very high CGI costs. He unsuccessfully shopped the project around to various studios before hiring PDI to do most of the character work as well as miniatures for backgrounds. Also, yes, like many of you, I was introduced to the Leonard Cohen song Hallelujah because of Shrek. And of course, here's a very weird story regarding it. Now, when Shrek, Donkey, and Fiona are isolated from each other, John Cale's 1991 cover of Hallelujah plays. Before choosing Hallelujah, directors Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen tried several other sad songs. Upon settling on Hallelujah, they eventually decided that Cale's version was the best fit for the scene. However, rock musician Robbie Robertson, who was one of the people in charge of the film's soundtrack, forbade the usage of Cale's version on the soundtrack due to Cale having no affiliation with DreamWorks Records. Instead, DreamWorks' recording artist Rufus Wainwright was drafted to record the song for the soundtrack, but Cale's version was kept in the film itself because Adamson considered Wainwright's version too full and too rich, and felt that the rawness of John Cale's version seemed to suit the character of Shrek a little better. Honestly, I find Robbie Robertson's reason for forbidding Cale's version ending up on the soundtrack is so stupid and befuddling to me. I mean, I hope that, I think if I were to find, I guess I would be better off finding the 1991 record in which John Cale sang Hallelujah. And I have mixed feelings regarding Hallelujah. On the one hand, yes, it's a beautifully sad song. But, I'm kind of but it's been covered to death so much that I'm kind of sick of having to hear it sometimes. So I kind of have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Hallelujah. It's like I want to like it. It's like I just need I guess it takes me a while. I guess I need to isolate myself from the song before loving it again. Now, Lord Farquaad's character and model design bears a very clear resemblance to Laurence Olivier's portrayal of Richard III in the film Richard III, as noted by fans. Both characters seem to be determined to do anything it takes to become kings. In the Greek version of Shrek, Gingerbread asks, do you know Peter Pan, instead of, do you know the Muffin Man? In November of 1998, it was announced that DreamWorks was seriously considering releasing the movie not only to widescreen theaters, but also to IMAX theaters in an IMAX format that would require re-rendering and assembling the entire animated film. It would give Shrek a true 3D look and put DreamWorks in the record book, with the first fully 3D animated feature for IMAX. But, in a surprising move, in February of 1999, Disney invested in IMAX and scheduled Fantasia 2000 to be released on IMAX screens beginning on January 1st, 2000. If you stop and think about it, Farquaad sending Shrek to save Fiona for him to get his swamp back could be a parody of The Wizard of Oz, as Oz would only grant Dorothy and her friends wishes by killing the Witch of the West. Unlike the wizard, Farquaad was honest as he got the swamp cleared for Shrek as agreed, although he threatened to change his mind. Also, Shrek is notable for being John Lithgow's first CGI film. Not good enough. Oh, looks like I screwed up. It was in July of 1997 that Eddie Murphy was cast as the voice of Donkey. And it was in October of 1997 in which John Lithgow was cast as the voice of Lord Farquaad. Also, Shrek is the only film to be released in the same year as a film in the Fast and Furious franchise and a Monsters, Inc. franchise, respectively. Now, animation work on the film officially began in November of 1998, 1 month after the release of Ants, and was completed in March of 2001, only 2 months before the film was released. So, yeah, there's a very high likelihood DreamWorks bought PDI right before production wrapped with Shrek. I knew it. Now, Hallelujah wasn't originally supposed to be in the film. The song before the wedding scene was originally supposed to be Return to Me by Dean Martin, but was cut at the last minute and replaced by Hallelujah, because, well, I explained why. But it's crazy to think that Bill Murray, Nicolas Cage, Johnny Depp, and Robin Williams were all considered to voice Shrek. Now, and John Lovitz was considered to voice Donkey, as was Nathan Lane, and Jim Belushi was considered to voice Shrek. Yeah, run away, run away! Now, DreamWorks bought the rights to the William Steig book for $5,000. Well, no, $500,000. Also, Shrek is the only film to be released during the lifetime of William Steig, author of the original book. And William Steig, actually, he did see the film when he was 93 years old. Even though it deviated significantly from his book, he said, and I quote, "It's vulgar, it's disgusting, and I love it." So yeah, the film got the seal of approval from the author, which is the best praise ever. Also, Shrek is the first DreamWorks Animation film to get more than one sequel. And I learned that Shrek 2 was eventually going to happen, but how it would be released would depend greatly on the film's success. If the film didn't do well at the box office, there's a very high likelihood Shrek 2 would have gotten a straight-to-video release, probably with a subpar animation. It's true. Now, Mike Myers improvised numerous lines in the film, including when he addresses the guests at Fiona and Farquaad's wedding. The original script had Princess Fiona born an ogre to the late king and queen of Duloc. They had her locked in the tower under the lie that she was of such rare beauty she was kidnapped. They died, and the kingdom was left under the rule of an ambitious regent, implied to be Farquaad. When she became of age to ascend the throne, she escaped the tower and encounters a witch named Dama Fortuna, who has narrated the entire sequence through her tarot cards. Blow me. She gave Fiona a potion which would make her beautiful, but warned her the potion had a side effect. She would change between her human and ogress form until she found her true love. Later, she was whisked away by her dragon guardian and returned to the tower. This storyline was not adapted to keep the story simple, but is mentioned through the witch Fiona tells Donkey about. I would assume probably the fairy godmother. The film also foreshadows Fiona's identity as something other than a normal human princess. For instance, at one point, the trio walk through a bug-infested field, and Fiona uses a cobweb stretched between two branches to ensnare the bugs. She wraps the webs up into a candy floss-esque snack, which she passes to Shrek to eat. After she does this, she licks her fingers, hinting that she shares Shrek's appetite for gross food not usually edible for humans. Later, she says his weed rat recipe is delicious and digs into it. And as you know, the film heavily parodies fairy tales in general, but it also explicitly pokes fun at Disney's movies such as Snow White, Pinocchio, Sleeping Beauty, and sometimes directly paralleling Beauty and the Beast. Additionally, DreamWorks Animation was bought for $4 billion by NBC Universal, longtime rival to the Walt Disney Company in 2016. And as you know, Walt Disney used to work for Universal Studios and created Oswald the Lucky Rabbit for them. That's for sure. When climbing up the fiery mountain to rescue Princess Fiona, Donkey says, "My mouth was open and everything," when Donkey thought Shrek passed wind, or farted. Eddie Murphy had used the same line in his stand-up comedy movie Eddie Murphy Delirious when he mentioned, "You could fart in your friend's face while watching the game, he don't care." Also, you're going to find this sweet or not. Mike Myers actually read opposite his then-wife when recording his lines for the climactic love scene at the end of the movie, which I think is so sweet. And yes, this music is great. I mean, it does act like a traditional fairy tale while clearly having its own identity. It really is. I really do love it, you know? The ending where Shrek and Donkey race to Duloc to stop the wedding because Shrek realizes he's in love with Fiona. He stops the wedding and tells Fiona that Lord Farquaad is only trying to marry her to become king and tells her that he loves her. It's related to the scene of another Mike Myers movie, Wayne's World 2, where when Bobby was trying to have Cassandra move to Los Angeles to keep her from Wayne so she can have her to himself, and he also tried to marry her, but Wayne races to the wedding and stops it, and Cassandra realizes she loves Wayne and she flees with him. But you are beautiful. And that totally makes the film great. I love that this doesn't cop out with the turning back into a beautiful princess. And I think it works perfectly. Alright, now where's it? Now, after Neil Diamond, the original writer of I'm a Believer, went to see the DreamWorks animated hit, he heard a group of giggling youngsters singing I'm a Believer in the lobby of the theater. I couldn't resist. I went over and joined in, and we just sang the song together, the 61-year-old singer-songwriter revealed in December 2002. They had no idea that I had written it, or who I was. I was just some weird guy who wanted to join in on the singing, and like a lot of people my age, I became familiar with Shrek thanks to... I became familiar with the song I'm a Believer because of Shrek. This was my first introduction to the song, among many other songs. And I love that Christmas Carol reference. And I love the way Eddie Murphy just belts out I'm a Believer. It really does add so much personality to the song. Sorry, I can't help but I'm internally dancing on the inside while recording this. I'm a believer, I couldn't leave her if I tried. Then I saw her face, now I'm a believer. Not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love, I'm a believer. And of course the song was used because the opening lyrics are, I thought love was only true in fairy tales, so it made perfect sense to use this song. Way to dance, Gigi. I believe. An onion carriage. Well, that's quite the layers. And they all lived happily ever after. Or in this case, and they lived ugly ever after. Except for Lord Farquaad. And that was Shrek. And of course, as you know, Shrek made a massive impact on DreamWorks Animation and the animation industry, showing that, and of course, it showed that PG-rated films with adult jokes could work if you do it right. And of course, Shrek became so critically and financially successful that it became the first animated film to ever win the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, beating out Monsters, Inc. and Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, and 25 years later, the film still holds up. It's hilarious, it's got heart, and it's the perfect parody. I see it as an essential rite of passage if you're wanting to get into animation. I would totally show my kids this film probably when they're 6 after showing them The Lion King and Aladdin and such, as I do see them as essential films. I mean, I have such a soft spot for Shrek. It's such a great film, even 25 years later, and I'm so glad that I got to go into a full deep dive talking about the making of Shrek here on Commentary Companions. Anyway, thank you for listening to my Commentary Companions episode of Shrek, and happy 25th anniversary to the ogre. Here's to 25 years more. Anyway, be sure to like and subscribe. Don't have a good day. Have a great day.